Hello and welcome to this pit stop for Silk, designed by Luis Ranedo and published by Devir Games. Silk is a 2 to 4 player, around 45-minute game in which each of the players are going to play as herders up in a mountain, herding these giant silkworms around, looking to feed them, build up a little bit of infrastructure and score the most points over the course of the game. On a player's turn, they are going to first of all take a silkworm from their nursery if they have any, and they're going to put it adjacent to one of the nurseries they've built here. So we'll pop that on there. Then they must roll 2 dice, and depending upon the results of the dice, they either take the actions associated with what they've rolled, or they may spend 1 point for each movement they wish to make on that dice, up or down, in order to take different actions. So the first action for number 1 is simply to add another silkworm, as we did already at the start, next to one of your nurseries. Each tile here, they've got different terrains, which means they score you a different amount of points when you eat there, but also they can hold a maximum of 3 silkworms, and you can have different colours of silkworms on the same spot. So I talked about feeding there in different terrains. For a 5, you can choose one of the fields on the board, and you can feed with all of your silkworms there. So for example, if I did want to choose this one here, this normal type of ground is going to score me 2 points for each silkworm here. I would simply flip this over. It now becomes barren and worth nothing. I have to bump this silkworm somewhere else. I'll put my nursery back upright, shall I? And then I'm going to score those 2 points per silkworm there, move them along the track. And this is the end game trigger. Depending upon the number of players you have, you get to a certain number of points, and that's when the game ends. You do end game scoring. For 3 players here, it's 40 points. Now, as well as building and feeding, I said we're going to build up a little bit of infrastructure. Whenever you roll a 3, you can place a piece of wall. When you place a piece of wall, it must be adjacent to a piece of wall that's been placed already, no matter who by, or it must be adjacent to a nursery. So in this case, for the purple player, they can build a piece of wall there, and maybe they're helping to build something along, because for a number 4 action, you can build a nursery. Now, when you build a nursery, it must be adjacent to where your shepherd is. Purple shepherd is here, and it must be at least 2 tile lengths away from any other nursery. We'll pop that in there. Now, that's going to do a few things for us. First of all, going back to those walls. This wall segment now connects 2 nurseries, and they can be of any colour. They can be different colours if we wish, and that's going to score us points for how many wall segments there are in that particular wall. That's 2 points there. There are also these bonus points you can score over here. Now, talking about putting silkworms on the board, you do one at the beginning of each turn, and you can do one for each one. If ever you completely empty your nursery, you start with 7 silkworms on the board and 8 back over there. You flip that over and score a bonus 10 points. For these walls, if you complete a segment that's at least 5 long, the first person to do it flips this over and scores a bonus 5 points. Your nurseries, if you build all 4 of them, you flip this over and score another 5 points. But it also opens up another action to you, in that once you've built all 4 nurseries, for each 4 action, rather than building another nursery, you can flip over a barren tile that's adjacent to one of your nurseries and make it viable to be scored on again by silkworms grazing. Now, the last bonus scoring here, and it'll also score you points at the end of the game, is the first player to make an enclosure fully around with walls that contains at least 3 tiles is going to score the 10 points. And the way we judge that is who's got the most nurseries in the edge of that particular enclosure. They'd flip that over and score 10 points for it. The last 2 actions we have are movement actions, and that's where we're going to see actually how the game really starts to work. For a 2 action, you can move a shepherd or a mastiff. Now, each player has got 1 shepherd and 1 mastiff on the board. Now, that's simple enough. But what that's going to do is that's going to generate movement of all other pieces. Let's take that wall out of the way there. If the purple player chooses to use their shepherd move, shepherds can bump mastiffs. Mastiffs can bump this monster, the Akami, which we'll come back to, and Akamis can bump shepherds. So the purple player may choose to move their shepherd in there into that mastiff. Now, different pieces of different types can never be in the same area together. So this mastiff must move, but because it's the purple player's go, even though it's the green mastiff, they choose where it goes, anywhere orthogonally adjacent. They may move it up here. And a mastiff bumps silkworms. In fact, shepherds and mastiff bump silkworms, which will move these purple pieces across here into this very nice pasture, which is going to score more points when you graze there. So that's a clever move by the purple player. The yellow player might use their number 2 to move their mastiff, and their mastiff bumps this Akami, and the Akami wraps all the way around the board and comes back over here. Now, the shepherd, the mastiff, and the Akami can wrap around the board, but silkworms can't. So if the purple player used this too, to move their mastiff into here, they get to move all these silkworms, and if they push them off the edge of the board, these have now become lost in the mountains, and they'll go back to their players and are not available anymore to be scored for that grazing. The final movement is the 6, that's the Akami. Now the Akami bump shepherds can't move into where mastiffs are, but instead of bumping silkworms, when it moves in there, it noms them. They go into their cave, and any of your silkworms at the end of the game that are left in there are going to be minus points for you. So we talked about the end of the game. It comes when you get to a certain point, and there is some end game scoring. We're going to check who controls those enclosures, and the number of tiles in there is multiplied by the number of nurseries owned by the person who owns that enclosure, and that's going to be some points. The Akami is going to feast on all these silkworms, as we said. It's minus 1 point for each of these. And then every single silkworm on the board is then going to feast and score the points for their particular field that they're on. 0 points for these barren ones. Those can be added to the points you've scored during the course of the game. And whoever scored the most points is going to be the winner of Silk. This has been a Game Pit Stop. For more videos of this, check out our YouTube channel. Or for more in-depth coverage of games, check out the Game Pit podcast. Thanks.